Amy, whatever.
Hello, everyone. To everyone joining, please go on mute, just so that the music doesn't echo. Amy, I'm gonna make you co-host. Could you help respond to the chat, and also, I think someone just asked for captions. All right, one more minute. Tell your team members to join, because we'll be sharing some schedule information for the 2 days. Cool. We're gonna get started just in 30 seconds. My Discord tag. I'm Jerry. My nickname is Jerry on Discord, so you can just find me, I think, on top of the server participants. But yeah, that's my tag. We'd love to chat with you guys, and yeah, like if any of you are interested in Web3 blockchain, yeah, we'd love to chat. But yeah, let's get started. So, okay, love lo-fi, but you gotta chill. Yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to the Build'23 hackathon, and yeah, let's just get started with some introductions. Everyone, please share your name. Where are you joining us from? And what you guys plan working on for this hackathon? What's the specific global issue? And yeah, what's your favorite tech innovation?
Tech.
Might be a bit, that's a lot of questions, but feel free to share any one of them. Damn, New York. Vancouver gang, let's go. Okay, I'm gonna turn back on the lo-fi. Yo. LA, okay. Toronto. Yo, I'm going to Toronto in March. Love to meet you. Indiana, let's go. New Zealand. Holy. Okay, LA. Mexico. Wow. Okay. DC. Okay. London. What time is it there? What the? Damn. Okay. Okay. Dedicated hacker. Let's go. All right. So, yeah. Everyone like this. Everyone's over the world. We're still worldwide. Yeah. If you are just joining in the kickoff, make sure to just register your team in Meet the Teams. We'll primarily be going off of the Discord channel Meet the Teams and be announcing the prizes through Discord. So please register your team through Discord, even though we asked for it in the Google. Even though we asked for it in the tally. So please tell your team to register in the Discord channel. And yeah, if you know any other teams who haven't registered in the Meet the Teams, do tell them as well. Yeah. Okay. Taiwan. Oh my god. That's like midnight, right? No, I think it's morning. Okay. Just gonna. Ooh. Okay. Yeah. 11 a.m. That's chill. Cleveland. All right. Amy, were you able to turn on captions for the Zoom meeting?
I think it can be turned on the participant side.
Oh, okay. Leslie, could you just request for it to be enabled? I don't think I'm able to see it on my end. All right, cool. That's enough of sharing. Let me just go over. This is 2 rules for not 2 rules. There's 3 points. There's a code of conduct that is required, but yeah, basically the code of conduct is that everyone be respectful, open-minded, and if you don't bring good vibes, you know, we'll have to hack your Minecraft account and you know, disable it. So yeah, just be respectful, open-minded, and bring good vibes, and your Minecraft account or Roblox account will be fine. And yeah, here's our code of conduct. I will share this. Okay, don't play Minecraft, bro. All right. Here's our code of conduct. It's gonna be linked at the bottom of our website. If anything does come up, within it is all of our team's contact information. If anything urgent, or if anything urgent comes up, and we need to solve that immediately. Yeah. Just don't have a Minecraft account. I can't believe it. Okay. And yeah. So I'm gonna give it over to Amy to introduce all of our tracks.
Hey everyone, I'm Amy, and let's talk about the tracks, the very exciting bits. So we'll have 4 tracks. One will be healthcare, so that'll be regarding the accessibility and the quality of healthcare. Then we have sustainability, which targets the climate change and our surrounding environment. Then there's inequalities, which targets education and social inequalities. Then for the last one, sponsored by VerbWire, we have the Web3 track, which is going to be the best Web3 implementation chosen by VerbWire. Now, you can win 2 of this because if you won the Web3 track, you can also be winning some other track. So good luck to you. And now we will have our awesome 3 speakers for today. We have Hiba, we have Sarah, and Alex. So Hiba is currently a graduate researcher at BC Children's Hospital, and Sarah has been nominated as the top 25 environmentalists in Canada. And lastly, last but not least, we have Alex, and he is currently the founder and executive director at Education for All Foundation. Take it away, Hiba.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Amy. Let me just share my screen for you all. Perfect. And if you could give me maybe a thumbs up in the chat if you can see that. Beautiful. All right. So hi, everybody. I'm very excited to be here today speaking to you about healthcare and technology. My name is Hiba, and I'm a current master's student out at the University of British Columbia. And I'm looking forward to spending maybe about 10 minutes with you about the intersection of healthcare and technology. So today, my goal really is to provide you with multiple examples of kind of healthcare and technology intersections. And I really won't go into many detail of them. More so, I'm just here to get your brains thinking about the unique ways that technology has been implemented in areas of healthcare. It's not letting me go to the next page. There we go. So I do want to start off with a quick land acknowledgement. And I am currently based in Vancouver. And here we do land acknowledgements to give thanks to the land that we're on, as it's important that the land that I'm currently on, it's ancestral, which means it's passed down from generation to generation. It's also unceded, which means that essentially it was taken away from the government, from the original peoples on the land. So I want to give thanks to the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations on whose unceded and ancestral territories I am living, working, and playing on. So on the left is me as a kid at my prime, obviously. And one thing you have to know about me is that I absolutely love science. And this really kind of, the 2 pictures on the right are one of my first exposures to the intersection of healthcare and technology. I'll put a big asterisk there because it's kind of. So on the right, you can see a commercial headset, which put very simply, measures your brain waves. Again, put extremely simply. And in healthcare, this tool is basically called an electroencephalogram or an EEG. For my purposes, I just needed like a small headset which measured brainwaves. And what I did was I actually used these brainwave patterns to make the robot on the left move, where if there was a certain type of brainwave, the robot would move. As I said, this was my very first exposure to the combination of technology and healthcare. And admittedly, this isn't the most useful tool, but it was very, very cool to do. So another thing that you should know about me is I love movies. Movies are such a great way to bring stories and ideas to life. My favorite genre of movies are sci-fi, which is blending things that could happen with science. And that really has always been something that I've been so fascinated by. I think there are really great examples in sci-fi movies, which have really showcased where the intersection of healthcare and technology can take us. In the most extreme example here, it can bring back someone from the dead, as in the case of Mr. Frankenstein. But what's really cool is that within some sci-fi movies, we can actually see those concepts being brought to life. One of my absolute favorite movies is The Matrix, and I hope some of you have heard of it. I hope so. I'm going to try not to spoil too much about these movies, but The Matrix is basically about a computer-generated dream world, which is designed to keep humans kind of sedated, and they effectively live a virtual life. And The Matrix, it makes use of a virtual world, really similar actually to using virtual reality for healthcare professional training. For example, surgeons in training make use of virtual and augmented reality to practice the surgery procedures before going into the surgery itself. Also, one of my favorite movies, 2001, A Space Odyssey. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend it. It was released in 1968, so it's a little older, but way, way far beyond its time. The overall synopsis is after uncovering a mysterious artifact buried, believed within the moon, a spacecraft is sent to Jupiter to find its origins. And the spacecraft itself is manned by two men and a supercomputer whose name is HAL 9000. And HAL is a really great example of artificial intelligence. So hopefully you can see where I'm going with this. As we know, ChatGPT is huge, and I'm sure you've heard of the new Bing AI that has come out as well. So ChatGPT in healthcare could emulate how doctors make clinical decisions by, for example, using a large database of research. AIs can extract the useful information relevant to making a key diagnosis and utilize the predictive process to identify the right pieces. I also want to highlight AI-enabled robotics as part of kind of an extension. Robots are now used not only in the operating room, but in clinical settings to support healthcare workers and even enhance patient care. This was super prevalent actually during the COVID-19 pandemic, where hospitals and clinics began deploying robots for a much wider range of tasks to help kind of reduce exposure to pathogens. My final sci-fi movie of today that I'd like to highlight is the movie Gattaca. This isn't as well known as some of the other two movies, but still a really great watch. Gattaca takes place in a future world where humans' DNA, again, put very simply, is analyzed before birth. And basically, people can choose the traits, children's traits before they're born. If you want to read more about this, it's basically called eugenics. As a side note, it's largely regarded as an immoral practice. But leading into this, many of you would have heard of CRISPR-Cas9, which is actually a gene editing tool. Scientists have widely agreed that this technology should simply be used for the creation of human disease models and in understanding the development of diseases, and should be prohibited for the purposes of eugenics. So I'm really curious, actually. I have the chat open here. I would love to hear a little bit about what you guys think, what comes to mind with the word healthcare. So when you hear the word healthcare, what exactly do you think? White lab coat, bills, US, disparity, yep. Needles, medication, insurance, medicine, yep. Hospitals, expensive. Thank you. Yes, I live in Canada, so maybe, yeah, that could be debated out here, but we can talk about that. Stress, unaffordable, not accessible to all. Really great point. Great, some really fantastic points that were brought up. What I'd like to do is give you my overall picture of what healthcare is, and a lot of what you guys have said really fit in this model. So I really like this diagram of a model of what I think kind of healthcare really is. And I'd really like to credit Alexis Koskin on YouTube. You can see her name on the bottom left corner. And I really encourage you to kind of copy her. If you're interested in this, copy her name and really look at her lecture. And it's a fantastic overview of all that healthcare encompasses. Briefly, healthcare consists of upstream initiatives and downstream initiatives. Let's focus on what we mean by downstream healthcare initiatives. These initiatives are focusing on the immediate treatment of individuals. For example, I break a bone, I go to the hospital and I get it fixed. In our example here, the person is being saved by the raft, and this is an immediate solution to the problem. One of the coolest treatments that I'm very excited to see is 3D printed organ transplantations. Transplantation lists are currently very, very long. So introducing these organs can have huge potential to lower the wait times for the organs. While we currently are able to 3D print some organs, that's a big asterisk there. There is a big challenge of getting the organs to actually function as they should. But this field is moving very quickly. So it would be really interesting to see where it comes in the future. Telemedicine is also a really big treatment option that has arisen, especially because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, doctors are able to instantly see patients for their medical concerns over the phone or video call. And this is tremendous benefits for people in communities that are remote and who may not be able to travel to access a healthcare clinic in person. Finally, precision medicine or personalized medicine is a very new and innovative approach to tailoring disease treatment that takes into account differences in people's genes, environments, lifestyles for disease treatment. Doctors can more accurately predict which treatment for a particular disease will work in which groups of people. This is very, very different from like a one-size-fits-all approach. Obviously, you and I are very, very different individuals with very, very different backgrounds. So AI, machine learning, and imaging technologies all contribute to predictive medicine. Now we're going to return back to our model here, and I'd like to focus on the concept of upstream initiatives in healthcare. These really focus on prevention, or actually stopping the disease before they can happen. And a lot of research is really focused on prevention strategies for various things. Let me bring up my example from before. When the downstream effect is I break a bone, I go to the hospital to get it fixed. And upstream initiatives is looking at how I got hurt and trying to prevent that. Let's say I was riding my unicycle and I tripped over a sharp bump on the road. That's what caused me to break my bone. So I would focus on trying to fix the sharp bump on the road. In our example here, we can prevent this strong river from even happening by diverting people into the ditch to save them. So as previously mentioned, artificial intelligence is extremely, extremely big now. And one of the best applications that it can be used, in my opinion, at least, is disease prediction and modeling. This can be from a microbe analysis to a larger human scale diseases. And it was extremely prevalent during COVID-19, of course. I highly recommend you check out Johns Hopkins for some great resources on COVID-19 disease modeling and comprehensive data sets. Wearables are also a really big technology now, and they're pretty popular. You can see Apple Watches and Fitbits. However, many programs actually utilize the data that's collected from these wearable devices to inform certain health behaviors. For example, if we see someone's heart rate going up on the Fitbit, a warning signal can be given to the user. Pretty simple. This is often used in conjunction with apps for prevention. A great example, a really close friend of mine has diabetes, and the way that they monitor it is using a device that's actually inserted into your skin, and it measures the amount of glucose or sugar that your blood has at all times. That information is actually sent to the app, which is used for monitoring healthy blood glucose levels and can actually prevent further damage or further kind of issues in the future. The last part of healthcare is all about inequities, where in our diagram here, that is demonstrated by these people who are just floating around, unable to be saved or rescues. And I think a lot of you really highlighted accessibility in the chat there, which is really something that I kind of appreciate. So very briefly, healthcare is universally agreed to be a right for all individuals in order for them to thrive and prosper. However, more and more so, access to quality healthcare is becoming a problem in many places. This leads to healthcare being accessed only by those who hold privilege. Additionally, when technology is introduced into facets of healthcare, this can complicate things. For example, if we wanted to introduce a telemedicine option, we need to make sure that people have an internet connection or a phone or a computer with video that they can access. In sum, I highly encourage you to think about the intersection of all these three parts of a working healthcare system: upstream initiatives, downstream initiatives, and any inequities that may rise. Make sure to understand who your target audience is and tailor your work to them. Otherwise, I hope you have fun, and thanks for your time. Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Eva. Awesome presentation. I love the learn acknowledgement and awesome presentation overall. Yeah, really awesome. So if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Hope you guys have fun.
If anybody has any questions for Hiba, I believe she also included her email. So if Hiba, you're okay with it, if they just reach out to you maybe for like a couple of questions. Yeah.
Yeah,
great.
I can put it in the chat if that's helpful. Yeah.
Perfect. And after Hiba, we have Sarah who's up next. Let's go, Sarah.
Thank you so much. By the way, awesome presentation, Hiba. I'm interested in also doing a bit of study in the healthcare industry, so it was really interesting to hear your presentation. Can you see my screen, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so hi everyone. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about sustainability and the sustainability track that is a part of today's hackathon. So a quick overview, my name is Sarah. I'm an 18-year-old climate activist, also innovator, and my main focus has been in the space of material science and nanotechnology. Before I continue, I would also like to acknowledge that I'm situated on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and as well the territory of the Mississauga of the New Credit First Nation. So I want to share a bit about what got me interested in the climate space and then talk more about how my story has taught me a bunch of different tips on how I can design future projects in the climate space. And I would like to share that with all of you today. My climate journey began really early on in elementary school when I was about in grade 4, when I learned about the climate crisis through a school presentation that I had to conduct. And essentially, I read all these very shocking statistics, and it made me realize that at the end of the day, my actions do contribute to this long-term effect that is negative. And so I started small, doing small actions, making better climate cautious decisions. But it wasn't really until high school when I got really interested in the innovation space. And particularly, one of my most memorable projects started in grade 10. And I had read an article about an oil spill that occurred. And what really intrigued me was I decided to do a bit more research on oil spills and discovered that every single year, particularly in the summertime, a lot of oil spills tend to happen. And this was a few screenshots of different articles this past last year's summer, closer to fall. And as you can tell, just almost every single day there's an oil spill happening. And the problem with this is that not only do oil spills affect biodiversity and sometimes ecosystems, but also they disrupt communities that live alongside coastal waters or that live in coastal communities. Turns out as well, once I did a bit more of a deeper dive in what oil spills are and the impacts that they have, turns out that over 4 million liters of oil is spilled into our oceans yearly. And this overall harms over 100 million animals as they die due to hydrocarbon oil spills in the ocean, eventually causing them hypothermia. And so I began to look into the current solutions that exist and also began to look into how I could design my own solution. And overall, over the past 2 years, I've had the opportunity to design my own prototype and as well design sort of this pitch deck and a presentation, which I was able to present at the International Science Fair. This is just one of the slides from there that highlights sort of the inefficiencies in current methods. So current methods are not durable, buoyant, degradable, cost-effective, or sustainable. And existing solutions are like dispersants, skimmers, sometimes polypropylene or peat moss, which aren't very efficient. And so over the past 2 years, I began to work on a solution that uses biomass, like orange and pomegranate peels, with the addition of a polysaccharide aerogel to remove 98% of different heavy metals, organic compounds, and oil from water. And essentially, after doing the cost analysis, I discovered it has a 70 times cost reduction than current water filters, which is really great. But that also brings me to the current point of today's hackathon. So while all of you have only 48 hours to develop and design your own prototype and presentation, I want to share a few tips on a few ideas that you can look into, or a few different ways you can sort of develop your own idea on the project that you want to work on, and as well the current trending technologies that are currently being used in the space of climate mitigation. The first point that I want to highlight, especially when it comes to climate change, is that you should choose a problem that deeply resonates with you. And that's because climate change, often as I like to reference it as, is like a huge puzzle piece. There are many different subcomponents, and then they sort of combine together to create what we know as this very scary term known as climate change. But by choosing a problem that deeply resonates with you and sort of breaking down the problem into smaller pieces and looking at the root cause, that way you can sort of, instead of spreading yourself thin, you'll be focused on one particular problem that contributes to climate change. So just a few that I can name are air pollution, deforestation. We also have ocean pollution, water loss in agriculture, plastic pollution, And this also somewhat interconnects with the upcoming theme, which is inequalities, but also we have the lack of climate education. Additionally, another different way you can think of looking into a sustainable future or mitigating climate change is to also look at the Sustainable Development Goals set out by the United Nations. And this basically acts as a blueprint for a sustainable future. And while some of these goals interconnect with the other tracks that are part of today's hackathon, you can still look into how they might relate with the climate change. For example, we have clean water and sanitation, which is goal number 6, but then we also have affordable and clean energy, which is goal number 7, which somewhat is related to climate action and climate change, which is a part of goal 13. Lastly, the third best way to discover the problem that you want to work on, and the way that I also found out the problem that I wanted to work on over the past 2 years and design a solution to, was through the news. And so looking at recent articles or the recent news publications on current climate change events is a great way to start. So for example, this is a particularly big topic in the United States, and it is the train derailment that happened in Ohio, which has led to vinyl chloride to end up in surrounding lakes. And this has greatly affected the communities that live in Ohio. So maybe a potential problem that you might want to look at and develop a solution to is seeing how you can remove vinyl chloride from water in a more sustainable and cost-effective approach. Now let's say if you have the idea that you want to work on, but you're not sure which tech you want to incorporate in your project. These are a few different pieces of technology that can sort of help you get started. And these are currently trending in terms of moving the needle forward on climate action. We have direct air capture, artificial intelligence, which can be used across many different fields. We have mycelium as well, which is also somewhat linked to direct air capture. Also construction material. This is something that I wanted to highlight because a few days ago, I read in an article that apparently concrete produces, I think, a third of the emissions from all of the construction materials. So it's one of the most carbon intensive construction materials out there, concrete. It's maybe looking into seeing how there is a way to reduce the carbon expense of it. Could be something you might be interested in looking into. Also, there's the renewable energies, looking into seeing how they currently are efficient, but how possibly using nanotech or material science, you can make them even more efficient. For example, solar panels only have an efficiency of about 22%. So looking into how that can be improved. Biomass is a really big one as well, as it contributes to a lot of fields like biofuel. However, biofuel currently sometimes is not the most best alternative. So looking into how that can be a co-product of something else to make it even better. Looking into the agricultural space and cellular agriculture, the Internet of Things, and also one that I had to mention is nanotechnology. Lastly, the biggest piece of advice that I would give would be to enjoy the process and take it as a learning process as well, to have fun with your team members, but also to ensure that you are practicing time management to ensure that you get everything done on time while also enjoying the hackathon overall. To conclude today's presentation, I want to share this quote by Albert Einstein that resonated with why integrated solutions that are intergenerational, so both youth and adults, are really important. And it's that we cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking we created them. So when we look back on the climate crisis, youth were not really involved in the decision-making process when it came to how climate change first started. And so right now, what it's going to take is also everyone's unique perspectives to yield unique ideas that can move the needle forward on climate action. And so, sort of as this slide illustrates, change starts and ends with you. The last piece of information I would like to leave you all with is a question that I hope will inspire your projects today, but also will inspire you to take these projects long term and to continue your passion in the sustainability field and become climate action leaders and change makers. The question is, if there was one thing you could change in the world, what would it be and why? Thank you so much and best of luck.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so now for the last presentation, we have Alex, who will be focusing on inequality specifically through education. Take it away, Alex.
Wow, yeah, thanks, Amy. Yeah, Sarah, that was a really interesting presentation. I'll definitely reach out to you to learn more afterwards. Yeah, today, let me just share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see what I'm seeing? Excellent, excellent. Okay, yeah, today I'm delighted to be presenting the topic of educational inequality. Actually, let me just, can everyone still see my screen? Excellent, excellent. Okay. Yeah, just quick shout out to the organizers, Amy and Jerry, for choosing this topic. This isn't one that usually comes up in tech hackathons, but I'm thrilled to be sharing it with everyone. So a little bit about me is I am the founder of a nonprofit organization called Education for All Foundation, or EFA for short. We are a 501c3 nonprofit founded in 2018. Our mission is to impart life-changing skills, think English fluency or other types of intersections between soft and hard skills, to impoverished and rural students, mainly in rural China, but also in a few other Asian countries, and all for the purpose of breaking the rural poverty cycle. And we do that by providing part-time teachers to underfunded rural schools where they may not have the teachers that are able to teach these crucial skills. We are 100% online and volunteer run. And I guess a fun fact is we are the largest foreign educational nonprofit in rural China. Okay, so today I'll be going a bit into how EFA began, as well as some simple steps that you guys can take in order to look at problems and find impactful solutions. That I took as well. So the first time that I really realized that inequalities exist and desperately need to be addressed was when I first visited a rural village back in 2018. And, this really made me realize that we need more smart people working on problems that are overlooked by the most people. I saw people that were surviving just by subsistence farming. I saw families that were being separated because their parents had to do migrant work for 11 out of 12 months of the year. And, I overall just saw problems that people were facing that no one else was helping them with, and that, we often take for granted. And, I believe that the rural poverty cycle is one of the greatest injustices in the world, because there is no agency, no social mobility if you live in one of these villages, even if, you're Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Einstein. If you grew up in a rural village, there was very little chance that you could have escaped the poverty cycle. And that's when I realized that something needed to be done. And that was, you can see some of the pictures on the trip. That was when I set up EFA's first English lesson. You can see that on the bottom right. That's how this entire journey began. Now, I chose education because I didn't realize it at the time, but education is one of the best mechanisms of uplifting rural communities from the ground up, because it directly impacts the skills of the people in that local community. And education solutions are often thought of as really complicated, but if you have the right mindset to it, they can be very simple. And so the rest of my presentation will essentially outline how the general steps that I took, the general steps that I took to properly design solutions that create the most impact. And these are steps that you guys can take as well. So the first step is to deeply identify and understand the problem. This is something that I think can be overlooked, but is arguably the most important step. Now, solving inequalities, especially in education, is difficult because the problem spaces are relatively unexplored. And it's difficult to also obtain quantitative data reliable quantitative data to analyze. And so that's why it's crucial for you to, first of all, understand the problem. And what I mean by that is, do you understand the long-term 10, 20-year implications of the problem and the solutions you're about to come up with? Do you have anecdotal and quantitative evidence? Now, both of these are important because you need the anecdotal evidence to tell a good story and to really be able to convey the motion of the problem. And you need a quantitative evidence to have a scientific backing to what you're saying. Third, is the problem small enough in scope, but impactful enough to matter? What I mean by this is, I think a lot of startups target problems that maybe 1 million or 10 million people have, maybe 100 million, but there are problems that are either targeting the most privileged populations, or the problem consists of inconveniences that may not make a 10, 20-year difference. It is much more impactful, however, if you choose a problem that only impacts maybe 1,000 people, but solving that problem can change every single one of their lives. Finally, a problem, it's a good problem to solve if you personally feel emotion for the problem. If this is a problem that you just cannot stand existing in the world, that you wake up and you think, I got to make sure, today I got to take steps to making sure this problem does not exist in the future, you hit the jackpot. So what this meant for EFA was, after seeing some of the homes that a few of the students that we work with live in, that was all the emotional convincing I needed to work on the problem. But after doing some research, I also found that less than 5% of rural students actually are able to be admitted to college in rural China, compared to 70% of urban students. It's also sometimes easy to forget that how big China's population is, where just in the rural areas alone, there are 70 million left behind children, which is larger than Britain's population. And finally, the long-term implications of these are that students need to resort to subsistence farming or become migrant workers like their parents without the proper education. And thus, this perpetuates the poverty cycle for 10, 20, 30 years, generations. So the second step is to create a solution that is absolutely needed, not one that simply suffices. The example I'll give for this is there are, in popular culture over the past few decades, a pretty common example of charities is donating your used items to countries in Africa, for example, mostly developing countries. And the big problem with some of these initiatives is that it doesn't exactly sustainably improve the lives of the people living there. And that's because if you look at the impact of these solutions 10, 20 years down the line, these solutions can often either destroy the local industries. If you're sending like 1,000 shoes to a small village of 1,000 people every year, the shoemakers in that village are not going to have a job. And the second reason is because by having this dependence creating this dependence between these developing countries and, more developed countries, that actually in the long term, it creates less chance of the local community from, pulling themselves up by the bootstraps. And so a much more effective solution in the long term has been adopted by several charities in the last decade of setting up shoemaking workshops. And this, is a solution that solves the local issue while also not falling to the traps of the previous solutions. Another way you can know whether a solution is truly needed is if the problem is overlooked by both corporations and governments. The reason I say that is because for problems that either corporations or governments are already working on, there's most likely already a lot of funding, a lot of talent that are working on that problem. And, that's not to say that they'll definitely find a solution, but there are far more problems that do not have the same funding, do not have the same talent working on the problem that equally need to be solved. And rural areas are a great example of this because, corporations don't really, they can't really make money from, working in a lot of rural areas. And frankly, governments don't really care how rural areas are doing most of the time if their cities are thriving. And so an example of this phenomenon that's maybe closer to home is if there is a struggling school of maybe 500 to 1,000 students in your local community. A really simple, easy fix to this would be just setting up a free online tutoring service that is made available to the students of that school. But that is something that a lot of people have already set up. If you search online, there are dozens of online free tutoring services. And so you're not really offering something that, is something that they could not have gotten before. A far more effective solution would be training the more advanced students in that school to tutor the struggling students. This is a form of peer tutoring that a lot of schools in Western countries have adopted, but not at a scale that really is mainstream, where the advanced students can also perhaps earn academic credit for doing that tutoring. That's a problem that I actually hope to solve in the future myself if someone else doesn't before myself. So yeah, that is something that I also recommend to you guys. So the example in EFA of whether or not we're solving a problem that is actually needed is goes like this. We did some research and we found that in China, only 1.2% of people actually know how to speak English fluently, despite over 300 million people being educated on the subject. That sort of speaks to how terrible English education is around the rest of the country. And so, we didn't really need to be geniuses to figure out that enabling our students to be completely fluent English speakers would significantly improve their job prospects, especially in this, increasingly globalized world. We also realized that in order to be a rural English teacher, you don't actually need to speak any English. There are no requirements other than your teaching certification, which does not include any English courses. And so a lot of the local teachers that we work with are, they just don't speak English at all. And finally, we realized that no one else could solve the problem. The government clearly wasn't doing a great job, educating even urban students in English. And there was a startup called VIP Kid who also tried to run a similar program to ours. VIP Kid, I think they raised $1.1 billion, something like that at some point. And what they do is they mainly hire North American English teachers to tutor one-on-one with students in China. And they launched a nonprofit branch which aimed to do something very similar to what EFA does, where they work with schools in rural areas. And it turned out that because the operation was too costly for them, that operation shut down. So we realized that neither governments nor corporations could solve the problem. And finally, the step I'll recommend to you guys the most is to keep your solution simple. And the reason I say that is I think in this new era, and especially in the startup culture, of emerging technologies, of all these very exciting, hyped up things, it can be easy to fall into the trap of having a solution and searching for a problem. And often, there are innovations that come from that, but far more often, what ends up happening is the root cause of the problem is not properly addressed because you're so fixated on a certain solution. And so what I found is that the most impactful solutions that create a real impact on people's lives are just simple solutions that make improvements in a variety of areas, and that work when no other solution has worked, in the past. A good example of this is microfinance. It was created by someone called Professor Muhammad Yunus. He's the founder of the Grameen Bank, which works primarily in Bangladesh. And basically what microfinance is giving small interest-free loans to rural areas where people often don't have credit scores, they don't have any significant collateral, and they don't have any significant income either. And the reason why this works is because a lot of the people living in rural areas often just need, maybe a few $100s in funding in order to, let's say, buy some seeds to plant in the garden, maybe buy a barrel to, ship the goods they have to the local market. And just with that, small investment, they are able to create a business for themselves. And because the loans are guaranteed by groups of people, the default rates are very low. I think the last time I checked, they were under 2%, which, you would not really expect at first glance. But as a result of him creating this model, he won the Nobel Peace Prize, and it's estimated recently that microfinances single-handedly increased Bangladesh's GDP by 8.9 to 11.9%, which is, pretty good for one innovation. And this innovation has since then also been adapted in other countries, such as Thailand, such as India, in various different ways as well. And so what this looked like for EFA was we saw what current English education looked like in rural China and thought, there are several areas of here that we can improve. First is that most existing external English education programs only taught maybe a few weeks, maybe a month during the summer with volunteers. And we thought, maybe that was effective, but aren't they missing out on the entire school year? So instead, we teach throughout the entire school year during every single school semester, such that we become integrated as part of the actual curriculum. Second, we saw that a lot of these programs did not provide any real training for the volunteers and did not provide any vetting as well. And so we decided that our teachers would only be native English speakers, and they would all receive around 8 weeks of training in order to, learn core classroom management techniques. Third, we saw that a lot of these programs, because they were after school or summer programs, they were not taken as seriously by either the local school or by the students in that school. And so we now form partnerships with these local schools in order to teach during the class hours of the English classes. So, for example, if there's 3 English classes every week, we teach one of them. And we do that throughout the year, and as a result, become part of the faculty of the school and able to deliver a much more official experience compared to some other programs. We then looked at the materials that these other programs were using, and they were often outdated government textbooks. So as a result, we switched to creating an in-house curriculum that covers around 6 or 7 years of material. You can see an example of some of these slides on the left here, where there aren't any major innovations in the actual content, but the delivery method is entirely different. Finally, we saw that most of these programs were using very rigid in-person classes, which, at the time was and still is the most common delivery method. But we decided that in order to enable all the innovations that we had before, these 4 innovations, we needed to be online. And that doesn't seem like a huge innovation now since, it's after COVID. But back when we started in 2018, this was something that very, very few people were doing before. And we were one of the first programs to deliver that sort of hybrid experience. And so all of this has led up to a nonprofit that is frankly only run by volunteers to reach over 1,500 students located across 20 rural schools. To date, we've raised over $50,000, and we only did that by using solutions that are, they weren't super innovative, but they were very simple and they worked. And we made small improvements in many areas. And so the takeaways here are that, educational problems are everywhere around you, everywhere you look. I bet that all of you can name many off the top of your head. And inequalities are everywhere as well. So choose one that matters to you, that you have a deeper intuitive insight about. And once you found a problem that you feel deeply passionate about, spend your time really understanding the problem. Why does it exist? How does it negatively affect society? What has already been tried? And why did previous solutions fail? And all of that leads to what can you do differently? And I think only once you answer these questions will a solution appear. So be sure to think laterally across industries, be creative with the solution, but don't overcomplicate it. In fact, you can, often just take an existing solution and make many of those incremental improvements that make it significantly more impactful. Because at the end of the day, any solution that solves the problem, it's a problem that wasn't able to be solved before, can be considered innovative. It doesn't matter what the solution actually is. If it solves a problem, you're doing something new, you're doing something innovative. And so, yeah, this is something that is supposed to be difficult. I would say all three of these tracks are very difficult, but I hope that these steps would help you in tearing down these problems a little bit. And I'll also be in Discord to answer questions about the process, so feel free to DM me. And I'll end off with this quote also by Albert Einstein. If I had an hour to solve the problem, I'll spend 55 minutes thinking about it and 5 minutes solving it. I think that puts it pretty well into perspective how important it is to understand the problem. Well, I think you'll have officially 36 hours to do that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys propose some solutions, and best of luck to everyone.
Thanks so much, Alex. So I believe we have a few passionate hackers about education who are talking in the chat. So would you mind if they reached out to you with their solutions, anything like that, for feedback?
Absolutely, absolutely. More than happy to hear from everyone.
Okay, thanks so much, Alex. Now, after we're done our speeches, Jerry, do you mind switching the slides?
Hi, sorry, I was muted. I thought I was talking, but yeah. So I'm just gonna officially introduce the tracks and all of the bounties that are within this hackathon. So as all of the speakers, thank you to all the speakers that have just spoke. We have healthcare, sustainability, inequalities, and the Web3 tracks that's sponsored by Verbwire. So that's all four of the tracks, and we have 4 bounties from Alpha Wallet and Verbwire. So these bounties are both, it's not mutually exclusive with the tracks that are just introduced. So you can get bounties if you win a track, or you can get bounties even if you don't win for a track. So check those out within the hackathon participant package on Notion. And just a note for both of these, for Alpha Wallet and Verbwire bounties, they're both accepting of non-technical and technical projects. So for UI UX, non-technical designers, you can pursue that, or integrating Alpha Wallet as an application to your iOS application. Technical people, you can go ahead to potentially include that as a portion of your project. But with VertWire, both are open-ended, really open-ended. So UI UX people, code people, you can pursue both of these tracks and win something. Further details on the prizes are in the hackathon Notion page. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So now we're gonna have a brief glance over the schedule. So tonight, it's gonna be just the kickoff, and we have one more workshop coming up called Thinking UX Problem Solving. That's by Mia. That's at 9 p.m. PST tonight. So yeah, make sure to translate it to your time. Tomorrow, we have quite a few workshops coming up. Make sure that if you're interested in attending any of them, to note it down on Discord, because we do have, I believe, events set up in Discord. So you can just say you're interested. This way we get a rough estimation as to the size that we're expecting. And then for Sunday, we have about 5 workshops plus one, basically just a submission deadline. That's at 5 p.m. PST. Also make sure to switch that to your time. And we'll make sure that the winners are announced at 8:30 p.m. So we'll have a closing ceremony, and we'll also be sending out an email with more information. And yeah, that's what the schedule will look like.
Just to add in what about Amy said, winners will be announced for the main 3 tracks, so inequalities, healthcare, and also sustainability, at 8:30 on Sunday. The sponsors will need additional time to process the projects that have came in. So bounties will be announced later on Monday, Tuesday. And yeah, so there's just a bit of delay for sponsors processing time, but all communications will go through Discord as well as email for the winners. So yeah, excited to see your guys' projects.
Awesome. So for the submissions, we have 2 options. So there's a technical submissions and the non-technical submissions. And these are all the requirements that are needed for each type. So to clear up some misunderstanding about the submission, basically how we'll be judging these submissions is you can submit either, but all of them will be judged based on these tracks. So for example, Jerry can submit one project for technical submissions, and let's say Tony submits one for non-technical, and they're both regarding inequalities. In that case, they'll be judged under the same criteria in the same track. So later on, there'll be only one winner of each track.
Cool. So you, for all of you that have came early into the Discord channel, you should have noticed that there's a channel called Hackathon Handbook. So what this is essentially a Notion page. So if you go into Discord and go to the #Hackathon Handbook channel, you should see a link to our Notion. So after you click that, you should be taken to this page where it includes everything that you need as a hacker within these 2 days. So yeah, there's free hacker resources in here. So some freebies for hackers to get as perks, and one of them I really love is gen.xyz, where they're giving us 200 free domains. So if you're doing a technical project that involves a web app, first come first serve. So 200.xyz domains. Just take one. Please don't just take one. Be nice. There's a Wolfram one and Cascade. So for submissions and deliverables, there's just some more guidelines on tips on how the submission will be judged, and then the types of deliverables that are the main sort of deliverables that we're expecting, but You can also have supplementary material on the submission form to be considered as well, for some bonus points with the judges. And yeah, swag distribution as well. Unfortunately, we're only able to distribute to NA, but yeah, make sure you sign up on the swag form. Here are some explores for beginner introduction to design, and also Python for introduction to the language if you're non-technical, and or if you're just looking to learn more about the languages used in AI, and also the design software of Figma, and also UI design. So yeah, that is the hackathon handbook, and additional information will be added throughout the hackathon. So if there's anything that you have questions about, first check there, and then ask a question in FAQs. So yeah, and then hashtag FAQs, which is basically the question channel for any assistance within the hackathon. If you have any, literally any concern, just yeet a question in that channel, and we should be responding ASAP. Additionally, for the Discord channel, you might notice that, hold up, let me just pull it up. Sorry, one sec. So we have a technical questions forum. This will be used for mainly technical questions. So if you have a question about blockchain implementing smart contracts, ask it within this forum. If you have questions surrounding AI, the AI post hasn't been posted yet, but feel free to initiate a post on artificial intelligence, or potentially using Python, and we will get to it right away. And also our mentors as well will be checking these periodically to help everyone that needs technical help. So if you have a question, just create a title. I need help with AI implementation, just make it clear about what the question you're asking is, and we can have further discussion within the forum itself. So yeah, if you have any technical questions, just come here for help, and then view existing questions that's already been answered. And yeah, let the hack begin. From now on until 5 p.m. PST on Sunday, you should be hacking. We don't have a reason to keep you here anymore. Just everyone leave and go hack. Goodbye. Good luck to everyone, and register your team in the Meet the Teams channel too.
Also, we have a workshop coming up in about an hour. Make sure to show up. Yeah.
See you. Good luck, everyone.
Bye.
And I'll just play some music.